When a worksheet is too large to actually see all the various parts, using the split window feature and also freezing panes feature enables you to see various parts of the worksheet in a more controlled manner. And in Project 2, we're going to take a look at a variety of ways that we can do this. On pages 174 and 175, they do provide further explanation on how to split a worksheet into windows and also how to freeze and unfreeze panes. I'm going to continue on in Project 2A. I've already pulled up the file called HCE QP report and have saved it appropriately as they've asked in Project 2A. As you'll notice in this workbook, if I scroll to the right to see November, December, or other areas of the worksheet, I lose my row headings on the left, which makes it kind of difficult to identify where you are, what row you're on, according to the row headings on the left. If you had additional rows, as they scroll down, notice the months disappear too as I scroll off of that. So in order to kind of keep control over the headings, the row headings, or the column headings, you can either split your window or you can freeze panes. And to split your window, you'll go to the View tab. In the window group, you should see a split button. I'm going to click on that, and when you do so, that divides your worksheet into 4 panes. And you have your own set of horizontal scroll bars here. Same thing with on the right. Notice as I'm scrolling to the right, I'm able to still see items on the left. Now, sometimes it's appropriate if you've got long columns. In our case, is maybe move where the vertical placement is. I'm going to lay my mouse on this vertical gray bar, and I'm going to click and drag that to the left. And then I'm going to actually remove the horizontal one because we don't have any rows at the bottom where that one really affects. So I'm going to remove that, again by just double clicking. And now I can see what's going on in column A and keep that controlled as I'm scrolling to the right. Okay, that's very similar. I'm going to double click to remove that. Very similar to freezing your panes as well. If you wanted to, again, keep the row headings intact, you can freeze your panes. Let me show you a couple options in the freeze pane option. If you go to the View tab, Window Group, Freeze Pane button, notice you've got some options on freezing panes, which gives you a lot of control over what rows and columns are being frozen, and I'll demonstrate that in just a second. But you also have a freeze top row. Okay, so if I click on that right now, notice it freezes the first row, and as I scroll down, it'll keep just the title, which honestly isn't a real big deal in our particular example here. We would probably prefer to have the months being frozen, so that when we scroll down, we would always be able to see the months. So that particular option is not maybe the best one for our worksheet, but I wanted to show you that. Once you've frozen it, you can unfreeze it by clicking the Unfreeze Panes option. The other option in there is Freeze First Column, which if you click on that, that certainly would be helpful because we've got the first column where the row headings are located. So as we scroll to the right, those stay intact. We can go as far as we want on the right hand side. Okay, now go back to the Freeze Panes, Unfreeze, and then the option here to freeze panes. Now this gives you more flexibility in where you're actually freezing your columns and rows. If you'll notice, it says keeps rows and columns visible while the rest of the worksheet scrolls. It's based on your current selection or where your active cell is. So if I wanted the columns to remain frozen, or row 3 actually, which is our columns, to remain frozen, and I wanted our first column or where our row headings are located, I want those frozen, I can click a row below the rows that I want frozen and the cell to the right of the columns that I want frozen. So since it's row 3, I want to make sure I'm on row 4, and I want to be to the right of the columns that I want frozen. So my active cell is in B4. I'm going to go to the Freeze Panes option and choose Freeze Panes. And then notice as I scroll down, it'll keep rows 3 and above frozen. Okay, so I could go down to row 100 and we'd still know what month we're in. Or I can scroll to the right and it keeps column A frozen, so I'll always know what the identifiers are for the row headings. Again, to unfreeze, choose that. Now, if you, again, I just kind of want to demonstrate this. I'm going to make cell D6 my active cell. If you choose, again, freeze panes, what will happen is rows 5 and above will remain frozen, and columns A, B, and C will remain frozen. Okay, so if I do that, notice as I scroll down, row 5 and above stay frozen. I can see that forever and always. And then if I scroll to the right, not only will columns A, but B and C will also remain frozen as I scroll to the right. Very, very helpful tool. Being able to freeze panes and also being able to split windows, since a lot of the worksheets that are used are pretty broad in the columns that are used and also the rows that are used. So just keep that in mind. Project 2A demonstrates how you can actually add information when information's been frozen in a worksheet. So I'll go ahead and try that as well. Our goal here is to mainly just have column A frozen so that we can scroll to the right and enter in information for the months of November and December. So we can do a variety of things here. We can click to the right of column A and choose freeze panes, or we could be anywhere and back in freeze panes choose freeze first column. So I'm going to choose the last one. That will keep the first column frozen. I can scroll over now to November, and they want us to enter in information pertaining to each one of these items. So I'll just go ahead and enter those in now. And for December, the information, I'm getting this information from the item 5 in project 2A. Okay. So again, we're able to see what the items are as we're keying in information over to the right. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and unfreeze the panes here. And moving on within project 2, we're going to take a look at naming ranges. And the cool thing about naming ranges is that when you use those named ranges in formulas, they seem to make a little bit more sense to users as you're sharing your workbook or worksheets with other end users. For example, if we were to put in, and this is not a real big deal, but let's say we were totaling those hours in January by summing them. When you look at that formula, B4 through B10, I know we're right there and we can immediately see what those are, but if we were to use that formula or function in sheet 2, try to assume that we've maybe put that in sheet 2, then the user has to come back to sheet 1 and identify what that range of cells is. Whereas if we've named the cells or named that range, then that named range will be used in the function. It's very helpful to the user to know what it is that you're summing. So we're going to try that. Let me back up a minute. And naming a range is very, very easy. And we'll take a look at that in project 2B. But the name box here is where we'll actually name the range of cells. And you can name one cell also, but in our particular example, we're going to name a range of cells. In project 2B, we're using the current workbook, but we're going to go over to sheet 2, and they want us to build a worksheet that looks similar to what you see at the bottom of page 177. The very last figure is kind of what it's going to look like there with the equipment usage report. And I'm going to go ahead and enter in this information. However, I'm going to pause the demonstration so that you don't have to watch me type. As you can see, I've generated the text, the data that's needed for sheet 2 by typing in the information that they've requested. I've also widened the column. I actually did an auto fit on that to make sure all the text fit in the column, and I'm also centered and bolded the text in A1 and A2. I'm going to pick up with item number 3 in project 2B, where it's describing how we're going to name ranges of cells. If you'll notice here too, we're going to be putting the totals for the avoidable delays, the unavoidable delays based on the information in sheet 1. So these are our avoidable delays for the entire year. The unavoidable delays, those are our unavoidable delays. And then we'll also do the same thing for hours for repairs and servicing. So those totals are going to end up on this summary sheet. And just to mention here, again, we're totaling these. So if we do this without putting in the named ranges, I want you to kind of see what that looks like. If we sum this, I'm going to click on the sum button. Go back to sheet 1, and we're going to select the range that includes these hours for our avoidable delays. So I've selected that range, press enter to accept that. You'll notice we have equal sum, and then it's referring to the range in sheet 1, B5 through M5. You can see that if you'd pass this workbook on to someone else, that they're going to have to go back to sheet 1 and determine what B5 through M5 is. So by naming that range of cells, we can certainly do so, and I think you'll see as we put this function in that now it'll become a little bit more clear as to what range of cells we're referring to. So I'm going to take that out for just a minute. First step you have to do though is go name the cells. So I'm going to go back to sheet 1. I'm going to select the avoidable delay hours. So you're selecting the range that you want to include in your named range. And then I'm going to click inside the name box. Click right inside the name box. And they want to name this AD, which is avoidable hours. And I'm going to press enter. And you cannot have spaces in your named ranges. So just kind of be aware of that as well. Okay, so we've named that range. You can see that in the list provided in your name box. We can do the same thing for unavoidable delays. We can name that range again by selecting the range of cells. Again, we're going to click inside the name box, and the name that they want to use for this one is UD hours. And I'm going to press enter. It's keeping track of the names here. And if you click on, if we go back to avoidable delay hours, if I click on that, that will select the range that has been named previously. Unavoidable delays, UD hours, notice that that will immediately go to those range of cells. We're also going to name the repairs range of cells, and they're going to call that R hours. Press and enter. And then servicing, they're going to call S hours. So I'm naming all these cells first, and then we'll use them in formulas and functions. Okay, got them all named. Again, you can see those in your name box. Okay, I'm going to go back to sheet 2. We'll put in the functions. Again, for the total avoidable delays, we're going to be using the sum function. Actually, we're using the sum function for all of these to find the totals. So I'll go to the sum function, and then you can do a couple of things here. If you still go back to sheet 1, select your range of cells. Notice it picks up on that range of cells and puts the name in there. Okay, and I can press enter. Now if we look at the formula, it says sum add hours, which is avoidable delay, which, you know, if a user's looking at your worksheet, they may not know what AD stands for. So you may, in real life, need to put in avoidable delays. I mean, actually write it all out and the hours. Okay? All right, then the other thing you can do, we're going to do the same thing with unavoidable delays. Again, the sum function. This time, if you know the name, which we do, I'm going to type in a U, and as soon as I type in a U, it'll bring up all the functions that start with a U. Okay, and it'll list them, and I'm just going to double click on UD hours, and that puts in the name of the range, and then I can press enter. Okay, so same results there. And then total delay, we just need to sum those two ranges. Get a total there. Repairs, same thing. Sum, and then I'm going to type in an R. And notice there's a lot more R's here, but you can see R hours. So I'm going to double click on that. And I press enter. And the last one for servicing, type in an S, and if you don't see it or if you don't want to pay attention to it, you can go ahead and just type it on in. If you know how to spell it and all that, type it in, and then I'll press enter. And now you can see all these functions kind of come to life, and we understand what the range of cells actually are without having to go to that sheet and look at the range. All right, and then total repair servicing hours, again, we're just going to use the sum function to find that. At the end of project 2B, they go ahead and have you change the orientation to landscape of both of these sheets, and also they have you have it fit to one page and put a footer in there. So I'm going to let you do that, or I think we already know how to do that. I'm not going to take time on the demonstration to do that again.